really bad. I really do wonder if we should just do the Zoom video. I don't think it's possible to do Zoom and live. Okay.
It's like
echo. Okay, everyone. We're ending this live video, but if you want to watch this video later, just click the link in my bio and I'll give Kyanne the link too, and you can watch the Zoom video. I'm gonna hang up. Okay, that's fine.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of people join.
We're learning.
It's cool, but we're learning. It's just not it's not a thing. Okay, let's do this.
Okay.
Perfect. So we're on the Zoom and let us introduce you. So, hi everyone.
We need bloopers.
We need bloopers. It's so funny because I'm going to edit this. Obviously, I'm going to like cut the part in half, but it's one of those things where it's always going to be weird talking to people who's not actually there. Okay. So let's do this. Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Blair. This is my friend Kyanne, who is a registered dietitian. I want to have her on for a series on YouTube if I can and talk with her about her wealth of knowledge when it comes to nutrition. Today, we're going to talk about her opinion about food, a few superfoods, and what we can do to stay healthy during COVID. Hopefully, we can have her back on to discuss more foods that actually have science and medicine to back their benefits up. And at the end of this video, if you want the list that I've been kind of researching and creating, you can email me, blairward25@gmail.com, and I will email you a link to a list with foods that I've researched. And again, I'm not a professional, so this is just what I'm finding. And I would take Kyanne's knowledge before I would take mine, but it could be a helpful list for some of you. And with that being said, we're going to introduce Kyanne. So Kyanne, please introduce yourself. And thank you for being here too. You're amazing.
Of course.
It's the second time.
I know. Well, we're learning how to use the Zoom a little better.
Yeah.
So I'm a registered dietitian, like you said. I currently work in clinical nutrition, so that's working in the hospitals and working with people when they're more in an acute state. So when they're in the hospital with like disease or after surgery or all kinds of things. You see everything in the hospital, which is why I like working in the hospital so much, is you literally see an array of everything. Yeah. And as a new dietitian, it's helpful for me to see where I might want to specialize in the future. So kind of allows me to dip my toes in everything.
Do you have a clue of what type you want to go into in the future?
Yes. So I really love gut health and I like GI. I work a lot with like GI surgery. So I see a lot of patients after they've had a GI surgery because it is a change and there's a lot of different, not only chemical changes in your gut that happen, but physical changes. A lot of the time you can't eat certain nutrition right away. So it's working with them on like certain diets to get back to a regular diet. So I really do like GI stuff, but I also really loved pediatrics. I did a few rotations in the pediatric burn unit, and I did a few in the pediatric ICU in my internship, and I really liked the burn unit. Surprisingly, it's sad, but it's so rewarding because nutrition is so important with healing their wounds, like your body. Yeah, wound healing, nutrition is so important, and so that's something I really enjoy also is wound healing. So
wow, that's amazing. And there actually is a significant amount of studies I've read that have to do with wound healing. I feel like the most science that I've found supports wound healing nutrition, which I didn't even know that was an area of research, but it is. And I didn't know how important, obviously the skin is the biggest organ in the body. And so it makes sense why scientists and researchers would want to understand wound healing better. But I didn't know how much of an impact different foods had on the skin and wounds and things. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it is really, like in the hospital, when someone comes in with like a significant wound, not only does a nurse get a consult for helping like dress it and do the proper techniques for that, but we also get a consult as dietitians for
Wow.
making sure that they're getting what they need for their wound to heal. Because if you're not getting proper nutrition, your skin isn't able to repair itself. And
Wow.
also certain disease states cause, like diabetes, cause wounds to heal significantly longer time than people without diabetes. So there's a lot that plays into it, but I really liked the burn unit and wound healing in that sense. I don't know if I'll ever end up in that area, but it was really fascinating.
You will. You're so smart.
Thank
You'll
you.
end up there. Well, thank you for being here, and I hope that we get to have you back many times. And I wanted to open up the whole idea that we tried to address in this the last time I saw you. Just in case anyone's watching, basically I had Kyanne on and we spoke for almost 2 hours that day. She dedicated 2 hours of her free day, her one day off, to making this content. And basically it all went awry. And we're trying to figure out, she's my first guest on this. And so we're trying to figure out the Zoom and the live, and there's feedback, and there's this whole entire mess. And we recorded such good conversation on there. And then, yeah, we basically lost all of it. So this is second time's a charm.
It was practice.
Yeah, it's practice. Practice makes perfect, I guess. But second time's a charm. And what I wanted to do was, when I first entered into more of the medicine realm and the science realm, and realized how important science and medicine was behind everything we did, I slowly started realizing that almost everything I thought about nutrition was pretty close to wrong. And that there are so many foods that I'm just the average American consumer. So if I read superfood on a packet, I'm going to be like, great, I'm going to buy that. I'm going to buy this. And I just love nutrition. I've always loved health. And so anything I think might have a benefit, I'm going to grab it and try it. And so the conversation with Kyanne last time was, okay, it's not bad to eat any of these superfoods, and we shouldn't look at foods as good or bad or anything like that. But there are some foods that are more nutritionally dense than others. However, just because something is labeled by the food industry as superfood doesn't mean that there's actually science and evidence to back this food up. And I actually learned that superfood isn't a medically recognized term yet. And so, and especially by nutritionists, they don't use that food unless they're trying to tell someone like, hey, this food's super for your body. And so what I tried to do is write a list that I collected from people who were interested in learning more about specific foods and nutrients. And then for the past couple months or so, I've been on my free time going on PubMed, PsycInfo. These are all scientific journals to read studies on these foods and actually put in time to see which foods have evidence backing them and which foods don't at all. I found that like agave and acai and aloe vera, aloe vera is great for wound healing apparently, but I guess that there's not like much else internally that it can do. So I've been learning a lot, and we wanted to discuss 5 foods today that Kyanne actually believes could be beneficial for us. And then we can also address, what your idea about science, how there's not a lot of research behind it and whatever. So now I'm going to let you take the floor with your thoughts on that.
So the thing with superfoods, well, rewind. The thing that we like to do as just people in general, especially when it comes to nutrition, is we cling to one food. We think that this one food is going to be the answer to all of our like ailments or weight loss, or for whatever reason that we're clinging to that food. Mm-hmm. And that's where that term superfood kind of comes from. And a lot of these foods are super. They're awesome. They have some really great health benefits, but not just that one food. You have to eat an array of these foods, and they all offer different benefits. So I think the thing that I always find super important and that I always work with patients about is like not clinging to a food. If you like kale, for example, for a little while was everyone thought they had to have kale to get this nutrient, whereas like the same nutrients are in many foods. And
broccoli, cabbage, it's a soulful fish or whatever that's called.
Yeah. So cruciferous vegetables have this thing called sulforaphane, which is basically the compound that like makes it stink. Like what makes cruciferous veggies kind of stinky is an awesome compound that has a lot of benefits, and it's actually considered antioxidant properties. So it's funny because we like to cling on one food. So
Yeah.
it's like you can get
coconut oil. I was all about coconut oil. I just raved about coconut oil. And then now, like, again, I don't know how much, we can talk about that on another thing, but I've looked it up and I'm like, I don't know. Just like aloe vera, I know it's good for topical stuff. It could be antimicrobial, whatever, but you need, yeah, sure, cooking with it, nice. Like incorporate the different things, but an array of things, a full plate of different colors of fruits and vegetables should be and different fats and different proteins and whatever is good for everyone.
The key is variety.
Variety.
And we want variety in our diet. And I think we get in this mode where we think that if we eat the same thing like every single day, like I have my chicken and my broccoli and my rice, and that really comes from like a macro standpoint where a lot of people do this like meal prep with macros. And the thing is like food is so much more than macros or calories. Like there's so much that goes into food, and that's like one thing I'm so passionate about regarding food is that like food isn't just protein, carbs, or fat. Like it has all these nutrients. It has
vitamins,
minerals. Like it's an experience. Like it creates your own mood. Like food is also a mood. So it's like there's so much that goes into food that I really try to steer people away from clinging onto certain foods and from using kind of like a calorie macro standpoint. Like that definitely works for some people, but focusing more on like incorporating a variety and incorporating all these foods is what I usually kind of
because I think the whole like macro concept, I've tried that out. I mean, I've tried every diet out, every superfood. I've just we'll go into a whole nother thing about this, but I try to be really open about the fact that I struggled with an eating disorder for like 10 plus years. And so because of that, I was a chronic dieter, chronic this and that. I think the whole idea of macros, it's a great crutch for people, and it simplifies and makes things a bit more black and white for people who are just trying to understand how to feed their body the best. But it's the most freeing. I think when you go through, most people who just have stuck to that macro thing have eventually come out on the other end being like, this isn't the way it, like you said, it does work for some people, but at least for me, at the end of the day, I was like, this isn't the way I want to live my life. I don't want to live my life with this rigid rule. I want to have a diet of abundance. I want to be able to travel and explore and not have to track everything in a calorie counter or track all my macros in a different app or keep a food journal. I just want to have this intuitive relationship with food, which is what I'm working on in recovery now.
And that's honestly, that is one of the most freeing feelings when it comes to food, because when we do this tracking, it's such an unhealthy relationship with food. And we often bring our other unhealthy relationships or other things going on in our life, whatever it is, that's a different discussion, into our food though. And we create this unhealthy relationship with our food. And that's where dieting comes in. That's where macros come in. That's where counting calories and food log and stuff. But if we're eating the right foods and we're incorporating variety in our diet, most often you don't need to be counting your macros.
Yeah, because you're more full as well. I think that's a huge point. Like if you're eating the amount of fruits and vegetables in your diet that's recommended every day, which not a lot of us do, plus drink as much water as you're supposed to, there's so much fiber you're getting from the vegetables and the fruit as well as other minerals and nutrients that you're so full. And when I started eating nutrient dense food, and when I introduced nutrient dense recipes to my other friends, they're like, first of all, this is so much food. I didn't even know I could eat this much food on my plate. And second of all, I'm so full, I can't even finish all this. And I'm like, well, that is what eating a nutrient dense diet looks like, and how freeing and liberating it is. You realize I can have a whole plate of something, I can have a whole bowl of something, and I'm not going to gain a pound. My body's actually going to go to its desired weight. Exactly what my body's doing now. I mean, I fluctuated from being like hospitalized anorexic to honestly verging on I wouldn't say obese, but I definitely had gotten really past the point of a healthy BMI at one point because I was binging, and I went back and forth between that for many years, and now my body's finally like going to where it wants to go, just because I've really been trying to focus on my fruits, my vegetables, my variety, and being intuitive. And that's what people don't understand. It's like you free yourself by eating these foods that we're going to discuss. And so let's get into it, I guess.
I guess we could start with cruciferous vegetables since we kind of touched on it already.
Yeah. Okay, what are your thoughts on cruciferous vegetables?
So cruciferous vegetables are awesome. I personally love them. There's so many different kinds. Like you were saying, there's cauliflower, there's cabbage, there's broccoli, Brussels sprouts, there's kale, bok choy,
Arugula.
Arugula. There's so many different cruciferous vegetables, and the thing with cruciferous vegetables is, like we were saying, that sulforaphane. It's that stinky compound that has those nutrients. So the thing that like I find so cool about food too is it's not just like cruciferous vegetables are carb. It's a complex carb, but it's so much beyond that. It's like so many of these things, like even the compounds of fruits and vegetables, like the colors, so like the different colors, the white, the green of these cruciferous vegetables also hold certain nutrients. They're called phytonutrients. Which are basically just plant-based compounds that have, and that would be a whole nother in-depth discussion. But what I'm saying by that is these foods have so many different things. They're also really high in vitamins and minerals. They're high in fiber, like you were saying. They do keep you full. They do give you that satiating feeling. And you can make them taste amazing.
Yeah. When I started reading all the research behind broccoli, I was like, I just want to shout from the rooftops how much people should eat broccoli. And I just started buying broccoli. And again, you said not to lean on a crutch for a food, but I mean, I feel more energy now that I've been eating all of this broccoli. Now, I kind of took it to the point where I called my parents and I go, look, there is anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, weight loss, satiety, all of these properties with broccoli. Why does no one scream to us about how good broccoli is for us and all of these different cruciferous vegetables? So I started buying it. But what's interesting is my dad goes on Amazon and he decides to go buy that chemical sulforaphane. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
I don't know how to say it.
Sulforaphane or something. Sulforaphane.
Yeah. So, and then he decided to buy that, but that actually I heard is not a good idea. Apparently they haven't found a way to put that in capsule form yet to capture that energy as well as if you were to just eat the vegetables raw or cooked. And that could actually be a bad thing because you're overdosing on something. And I know you spoke last time about supplements, how it's really hard to regulate them. Can you touch on that really quickly, just supplements in general, and why it might be better to eat the fresh food instead of taking like a broccoli tablet, a garlic tablet, a berry tablet?
Yeah. So the thing with supplements is they're not regulated. So we don't really know that they have what's in there. And we also don't know the safety of some of these supplements because there is toxicity of certain vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and there is an upper limit where you don't want to exceed them sometimes. And if you look at a lot of supplements, it'll say like 3,000% of your vitamin B12, and you're like, why do I need 3,000% of what I need in a day?
Yeah.
So a lot of these things, and if we don't really know what's going in them, and like for the sulforaphane,
Yeah.
I know. For example, when you're taking a supplement form, it's getting processed through your liver. So if you don't really know what's in that supplement and it's not being regulated and you can just get it from a food, I always tell people, because if you're eating the broccoli, you're not just getting the sulforaphane. I can't even say that word anymore.
Yeah.
You're also getting all the other nutrients with it. So it is better to get your actual nutrients from your food. And most often you don't need a lot of the food to get the adequate amount of the nutrient. if that makes sense.
Exactly.
Like you can just eat a cup of broccoli, which a cup is not that much. I know we think cup is like our big cups, but it's 8-ounce cup.
Yeah, especially if you cook it, it's even smaller. You take a cup of raw broccoli, it really turns into like a half cup of broccoli. Put some sea
Exactly.
salt on that. So
Yeah.
good. Perfect. So yeah, everyone, through the research, there are a few vegetables that we know really do some good things for your body. And it's actually astounding the evidence that science has when it comes in terms of cruciferous vegetables and the benefits that they have. We do know right now, science always changes, but we do know at this moment in 2020 at 11:34 a.m. that these vegetables are really good for you, and to incorporate cabbage, broccoli, kale, rocket or arugula, whatever you want to call it, cruciferous crunch vegetables into your diet. And for me, just a emotional thing I want to touch on is I like the crunchy vegetables. I like to cook them, but I even like them raw because when I'm stressed, someone who's always, I've typically been an emotional eater my whole life, having that crunch, like making that type of, I don't know, I take sometimes like celery, apple, broccoli, chop that up, put some sea salt and Dijon mustard, maybe a little apple cider vinegar, stir that together. That with like some sliced almonds. Recipes like that, if you get creative, can be so good for stress because
There
typically
is something about crunchy foods because I find myself feeling like that too. Sometimes where I'm like, I just want something crunchy.
Yeah. So instead of a chip and instead of candy or other things we typically want to crunch on, this is such a good alternative. And if you continue to turn to that, eventually your body will start craving it. I know not at first, but it does now.
Absolutely. Like, well, and it doesn't have to be like how you said the apple. Like, if we want to replace candy with an apple, it's like throw a little bit of peanut butter on there, throw some cinnamon, and you still have a sweet treat. So it's like, it's just getting creative with your sweet treats versus just grabbing a candy bar. And I like, and to touch on those too, like, we search for low calorie foods. Like right now we're in the business, the new like food business, where we have all these health claims. I'm low calorie, I'm half fat, yeah, as normal, I'm a superfood, I'm gluten free, I'm whatever. All these foods have these labels, and if you're really looking for those types of things, like something that's gluten-free and low fat and low in calories, that is literally your cruciferous vegetables. That is your apple, that's your celery, like that is your fruits and vegetables. They're naturally low in calories, they are low in fat. So it's funny that we search for these claims on products when we literally have like from the earth
right in front of you. I know.
yeah.
And you know what? I think from someone coming from like an eating disordered mind, my thoughts around just fruits and vegetables is I thought it couldn't be that simple. It couldn't be that much of a solution. And to be honest, I didn't want that to be the solution because I wanted to find a way to eat my low calorie treat and my low calorie ice cream and my low fat whatever, because that's the stuff I wanted to binge on. And so it became this like restrictive process where, okay, well, if I can't have the actual ice cream because that's bad, then I'm going to have this low calorie ice cream. At the end of the day, that never satisfied me. I wasn't getting any nutrients from anything that I needed. And then I would still end up binging on the ice cream later. So it's a whole thing about whatever sweet treat you're having, try to just fill your plate with as much variety and nutrients, fresh fruits and vegetables as possible. You're going to crave both of those things less. And when you do have them, you're going to feel less guilty. You know what I mean? You don't need to search out the low calorie stuff. And you mentioned last time you're a nutritionist, you still, or registered dietitian, that's different. Nutritionist, I remember that. Nutritionists aren't, you said they don't have the.
So anyone can call them, you could call yourself a nutritionist for looking up nutrition research. Anyone can get that title. There's no like basis for calling yourself a nutritionist. Whereas
Registered dietitian, you've gone to school.
Skilling. Yeah.
Yeah, you've done the medical placements, you've worked with clients, you've seen results, you have the science and research behind you, any that there is to back up what you've done. So that's a good point. All right. So anyway, we've really drove home the cruciferous vegetables point. So everyone incorporate those. Okay, and then what's the next one that you wanted to discuss?
We could talk about the cherry juice so you had posted a picture of cherry juice the other day, and
yes, I'll pull
cherry
that
juice
up.
is awesome. And I want to emphasize, when you get cherry juice, you want to get like the 100% fruit juice. You don't want the juice concentrate. You don't want anything like that. You want the 100% cherry juice.
Organic if you can.
And like, I'm a Trader Joe's junkie. Trader Joe's has it. Yes, that's perfect. With the lime, you're adding some vitamin C.
It was so good. An ice cube lime. I also put a little dirt of stevia in there. I just had to. I don't know what your feelings of stevia are, but sometimes it's a little bitter.
There's so much mixed research with stevia. But yeah, cherry juice, though, is awesome in the sense, obviously, with people with diabetes, you want to make sure that you're not over consuming juices. It's still going to raise your blood sugar. But for individuals without diabetes, cherry juice is great if you want to have it. I don't recommend having juice every single day for people, but it is really helpful because it does help with sleep. I drank cherry juice in college sometimes because I would struggle with sleep like at the end of the night sometimes, and I would drink cherry juice. I think it was my senior year where I was like drinking more cherry juice, and it really does help. The compounds in it cause you to kind of get sleepy. Not only that, but they have it keeps your bowels regulated. So something super important for us as dietitians that we talk about is we like when our patients have regulated bowels. I know it's not everyone's favorite subject to talk about, but it's
important.
It's important.
Elimination, yeah.
Exactly. Like if you're not eliminating it regularly, then you're having some issues down there in your gut. So that's something that's awesome with it too, is it's kind of like a natural laxative. Even eating the whole cherry, not just cherry juice, but eating the whole cherry.
Yeah. Those get you. Just a handful of those, and you will be in the bathroom.
Exactly. So it's like, it is really helpful too, like for people who may struggle with constipation. A lot of kids actually struggle with constipation. So when I was in my pediatric rotation, that's something we'd recommend sometimes.
Yeah, because it's delicious.
Yeah, and prune juice doesn't taste good for kids.
No.
And as much as prune juice helps get things moving, I would love to hear a kid that accepts prune juice.
Me too.
I would love to hear that. So I recommended cherry juice a few times because it does help get things moving. Kids love juice. And so
my thing is I've been having trouble with sleeping. I think my number one struggle right now is keeping a good sleep routine because I had moved to Europe. I'd moved back. I was traveling all over to different time zones while I was there, back and forth between the US. And now I'm here. Obviously, my vitamin D was off. My sun exposure was off because I was living in a dark place in Scotland. I was going to Iceland, and like my circadian rhythm is just freaked right now. And so I started looking into obviously this list of foods that I've created, and I had never heard about red tart cherry juice being effective at all for anything. I was like, what? And then I read about all of the research behind red tart cherry juice, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually proven to not only increase melatonin, which helps us sleep, but also improve sleep efficacy, so just better sleep in general. To be honest, I have been doing it a little, probably 4 ounces of it with a lime and a little squeeze of stevia in it. And you said research is weird on stevia. I just love it. But
and it's fine. It's considered safe. So,
maybe maple syrup or honey instead. I can incorporate, I guess. But either way, I like it a little sweeter. So it's kind of like a cocktail for me. Like I don't really drink alcohol, so I consider it as my little end of the night thing.
Yeah, your nightcap.
My nightcap. And I've got to be honest with you, my sleep has been significantly better. It's been so much deeper. I have not gotten up. I have just been like out like a log. And it took 2 weeks for this to happen, but I truly feel the benefits, and I'm like a believer in cherry juice now. So
it tastes good. It really does taste good.
yeah. Okay, so everyone, if you didn't know that, red tart cherry juice, organic, not the concentrate, the real juice, and even just a handful of actual cherries can do the trick. Okay, so what is the next one you wanted to address?
I think we were going to talk about, oh, well, you said honey, so we can talk about honey.
Yeah.
I personally love honey. If you're going to use a sweetener that other than stevia that's doesn't have sugar, but personally what I tell people when they are going to use a sweetener that does have sugar, to use honey, because honey does have other benefits to it. And to make sure you're getting an actual honey, sometimes those little honey bears is a honey syrup. It's not real honey.
Oh.
So looking for making sure that it is 100% honey. There's lots of fun little hacks in the food industry where they get away with a lot of things. So people are buying those things and it's honey syrup. So it's not always, like, the honey bears are not always fake honey, but sometimes they are. So it is something to be aware of and to look at, because if it's a honey syrup, you're not getting the actual benefits of honey.
Huh. So when you look at the label, it should read 100% raw honey or what kind of?
It doesn't have to necessarily say, let me see, raw honey. But it's just important to make sure. Yeah, because in the label should say it. And like Manuka honey, different honey, like a lot of health food stores. So like if you're going to Sprouts, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods, whatever like nutrition stores in your area. Yeah, everyone has a different health food store. They normally have good real honey. You can also, a lot of local places, so like right now with allergies being so bad, local honey and local bee pollen has been shown to significantly reduce allergies. Allergy symptoms.
The place, correct? That you're.
Yeah.
I moved to LA, and when I moved to LA, my allergies flared up because I was just in San Diego, and then I went to the mount. So San Diego, so beach, and then I went from the back to the mountains, my home, and then I went to LA, which was like smog and city, and it was the first time in the city, and I was having asthma attacks. Little did I know I was really inflamed from Lyme disease and all this other stuff. But I went to the farmers market there, and they were talking about the honey. Apparently, if you're eating local honey from the area, it might help you get more acclimated to the allergies there.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I also read honey is antimicrobial, so it can kill bacteria. There's a lot of more research that needs to be done, but
I also use honey topically a lot of time for wound healing, like we were talking earlier, because of its antimicrobial, antifungal, antiviral properties. So not only is it like working when it's inside us, obviously you still want a little amount of honey. A little goes a long way. Yeah. But they do use it topically a lot now, and in wound healing. So because of those benefits.
To be honest with you, I'm always trying to experiment with organic face masks. I try to take just leftover ingredients in my fridge and put them in a little thing, stir up, and make a face mask. And the most beneficial ingredient for me on my skin has always been honey. I've always struggled with acne, mainly because I always had a poor diet and immune system and hormonal changes, etc. My whole life. I put my body through so much, and I would especially get it on my cheeks. And I don't know if you can see it, but I still have some scarring. However, it's a lot of it's gone away because I keep mixing like coconut oil, aloe vera, honey, anything that I would eat and put in my body, I've put on my face, and the honey has made my skin feel so smooth and not tight, but clean, fresh. And I think it's been the best ingredient for my face.
Yeah, I've used it in a face mask before, but I will say it was one of the messiest face masks I've ever made before.
Oh no.
I definitely had honey everywhere, but I've learned since then. But it's great topically. It's great as a nice little sweetener. I personally like to use honey a lot in desserts in a replacement of sugar. Because if I'm going to put, honey still has sugar.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to make a dessert, I would prefer something that has other benefits than just sugar.
Yeah, let's pack as much benefits as we can in there.
Absolutely. So that's usually why I switch.
Yeah, what I love talking with you is just saying that you really practice what you preach and you eat what you tell people to eat and you exercise like you tell people to exercise, and your skin is like one of the most, it always has been, but it's just some of the most beautifully glowing skin ever. And if anyone's watching this video, you can see she has like the perfect glow on her cheeks and there's not a zit on her face.
Well, thank you.
Really from the inside out shown what food can do. And I know that there's not so much evidence about what food can exacerbate acne. I know dairy and dark chocolate might have effects on people, but I don't think there's one person who deals with food that would deny people who eat a healthier diet, I would say, tend to have most of the time better skin. That's what I would say.
What they're finding is like sugar and salt. So the thing with with acne regarding nutrition is, like you said, there is not a ton of like substantial research that shows exactly what food, like you said, dairy is one that people tend to say, and that's usually with the dairy is because
hormonal. It's a hormonal acne, yeah.
Exactly. And not only with the dairy and it's linked to acne, also is a lot of people become lactose intolerant or don't tolerate dairy as we get older. It's very common to become lactose intolerant. If you weren't when you were younger, it doesn't mean that you won't be when you're older. And that's one thing we're finding is it's increasing in how many people are truly lactose intolerant. So if it's kind of wreaking havoc in your gut and making your stomach upset, it's gonna kind of present itself in other ways. So that's kind of why dairy likes to show up on your face.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I should probably be sensitive with that comment, because for someone that does have hormonal acne and who does eat a clean diet, I know that it's not always about just what you eat, but I do notice it helps. The times when when I eat a lot of heavy food or I'm drinking alcohol or something like that, and it's heavy, I mean with everything like chemical and sugar and fat, I do always see it on my face, and people can just figure that out through their own experiment. But
yeah, well, and to like what you just said on that, I have been transitioning off birth control. I started transitioning off of it in July, and because I just didn't want to be on birth control anymore, and that's another discussion. But I really was struggling with hormonal acne getting off of it, and I've never really struggled with acne, and I was getting that, and like on my jawline, where I was like, my diet, it had nothing to do with my diet. So I am very sympathetic when it comes to acne in that way, because it isn't always diet, and could have the healthiest diet. Yeah, it could be stress. It's environmental too, different things like that.
The pollution. Yeah. So up when I went to Scotland, because the air is so fresh there. There's no pollution. I didn't see a zit for weeks and weeks, or any acne. I hate the word zit, but I didn't see acne for a very long time. All right, so next superfood, we've discussed cruciferous vegetables, red tart cherry juice, honey, and
we were going to talk about garlic.
Yes. Oh, love garlic.
I love garlic. If I could eat something for the rest of my life, it would be garlic, probably.
You love garlic.
I do. My dad has always cooked with a ton of garlic my entire life. So like garlic has always been a huge staple in my diet. And I definitely eat garlic at least once a day. Yeah. I would have to say at least one meal I have, sometimes twice. But
me too.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, I'm making some eggs, oh, throw a little garlic in there. Oh, I'm making like stir fry some veggies, throw a little garlic in there. So it's the thing that I love so much about garlic is it replaces a lot of seasonings or certain things that we can't have. So for things that are really high in sodium, because one thing that I talk to patients about a lot, especially because we do have a lot of heart and cardiovascular issues in the United States these days, sodium is a huge culprit of that. And so one thing when I'm giving education for that is reducing your sodium. So I always talk to them about finding things like no added salts, lower sodium, make your own, like canned, because canned foods and frozen foods are really high in sodium. So if we're eating fresh fruits and veggies, I always talk to them, instead of grabbing that salt shaker and putting a bunch of salt, and it's okay to have salt, we need sodium still, but the amounts that we have is not how much we want. So I always tell them, throw in some garlic powder, throw in some fresh garlic. Like garlic is a great flavor to substitute sodium, because when people are transitioning from a really high sodium diet to a lower sodium diet, food doesn't taste good to them. They're like, I get that so often, where they're like, my food has no flavor, it's nasty. And I'm like, just it's an adjustment. Like when I first went to college, I was used to higher sodium. My dad loves a salt shaker. And I transitioned to that. Like my freshman year in the dorms, I still probably had too much sodium, because you live in the dorms and you eat dorm food. Unfortunately, that's the case. But at that point, I started transitioning, buying lower, like no added salt, so I can add my own lower sodium broths and soups, so that type of stuff. And you can taste the difference, because now if I have something really high in salt, it's almost like salt water. Like I took a gulp of salt water. So that's one thing that I tell people in that transition: incorporate garlic, because not only is it great for flavor, but it is. And the thing with these superfoods is a lot of them have the same qualities. Garlic is also antimicrobial. It's also antifungal and antiviral. So the thing is like, if you incorporate, like we were saying, like incorporating a bunch of these, you're getting a lot of these same properties, because a lot of these superfoods have the same benefits.
Exactly. I know that when I was diagnosed with Lyme disease, a lot of people who have Lyme have co-infections. So they have parasites, bacterial infections. And when I was tested and I got my results back, my body was almost like a walking corpse. Like I was infested with, so gross, but all of these different parasites and bacterial infections that staph infection, regular, just like gastrointestinal parasites that were, I don't even know how long they were living in me. But I love my doctor. She's actually Justin Bieber's Lyme doctor, and a few other people I know.
I remember you posting that. I was like, that's really cool.
Yeah, Justin Bieber's Lyme disease doctor, Dr. Erica Lehman. She's cool because she went to Northwestern. She has her medical background, but she's always in support of any holistic approach to healing. And she told me, she's like, instead of the capsule of garlic, which is what a lot of people do, why don't you just take 1 clove of garlic, mince it up, and incorporate that into your meal every single day? And this is the most gross thing I'm about to say on a YouTube video, but during that period of time, parasites were like flying out of me. And it's so gross, but they were dying because they're kind of like vampires, and they suck your blood and nutrients out of your body. They're like a foreign invader in your digestive system, living off of you. And just like the whole tradition of vampires hate garlic, it's almost like these little vampires in your gut hate garlic.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah. And so they die. And these things, I was getting colonics, which is colon hydrotherapy at the time, also very controversial, but they made me feel better. So I went for it, and I watched these things just float dead out of and I was like, how are those in there for years? And my nutrition consultant, who she's someone that's very close to me, I've been going to her for years for nutrition advice. She also does the colonics. She was like, that thing, I saw one like this big. She's like, that thing must have been in you for like 7 years. And I really do attribute the garlic and the medical evidence behind the garlic for being a huge reason of why those suckers were just dying. And I can't believe I just talked about that on.
It's important to talk about, though, because a lot of people do have parasites. So many people. Yeah, and we don't know. And there's so many, and it's really gross to think about. I totally get that, but and if we're eating these foods and we're feeding our body with nutritious foods, we're not feeding them. And that's like where like comes back to gut health, is these parasites are in our gut. And if we're not if we're feeding them sugar, because that's what they want. They want sugar and fats and salt, and they want that shitty food, lack of a better word.
They feed off the chemical compounds of that.
Yeah. And if we're feeding our bodies with high nutritious foods, and we're feeding our bodies with like good fiber, probiotics, prebiotics, different nutrients, like the garlic has been shown to be anti-parasitic for a lot of people.
Yeah, it kills
and
those.
and it's I think that's what's so cool. I love that about nutrition. Is nutrition is literally medicine, and that is why I got into nutrition in the first place. Is it is so fascinating how these foods, we eat them and their different little compounds go in our body and do these really cool things. And I think if we transition our thought from food as like kind of, again, the macros, calories, weight loss, weight gain, and we transition to what it's doing for our bodies, and that's what these superfoods do, is feed our bodies the nutrients we need. If we shift our focus to that, we are doing what we need to nourish our body, despite whatever research might show that it's super effective or maybe effective or not effective. If you're including these foods, you're getting the overall benefit.
Yeah, and it's incredible. And I do have to note that when I first started experimenting with food in the kitchen and cooking more, it was such a hack to just put more garlic in my food. Now a comment that a lot of people make, and that I struggled with at first, is when I first started eating garlic, I honestly would like smell my arm and be like, I smell so bad right now. I would literally sweat out the smell, and I couldn't eat it for years because I was sweating out the smell. Now, what I realized, and some advice I was given and later, is that if you cook the garlic, it has less of an effect. If you eat it raw, which that's really intense. If you eat it raw, then you might smell a little bit. But if you cook it well, really dice that up, simmer it in some olive oil or whatever, or just like put it in the pan, eat it, you're going to smell less. But also I heard, I don't know if this is right, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like apparently if your body is having super strong odors and reactions to a specific food you're eating, it could be because something else in your system is off. And that's what I've heard, like bodily smells. I don't know if that's the case at all, or if we know enough.
I mean, it can be. The thing with that is bodily smells can sometimes be hormonal. So it could be something off hormonally for men or women. It could also be if you're not hydrated enough, if you're not allowing your body to flush things out, they're going to start coming out other ways. Yeah, I should probably drink some water. On that note.
Cheers to drinking water. So Kyanne, how much water? There's so many myths. I have gone years drinking like a gallon a day, drinking nuts. This makes you blood. How much water should we be drinking?
So the rule of thumb for women is like about 2 liters, and the rule of thumb for men is about 3. Yeah. So like this is a liter. So about that's probably a little more than a liter. But so I always tell people between 2 to 3 liters. There's no like perfect answer.
Get a water bottle, fill it up.
Yeah. If you aim to drink at least 2 of your water bottles a day, you're doing pretty good, because you're also getting water from if you're having fruit, if you're having some soup, vegetables, watermelon. Like there's so many different foods that have fluid also, so that adds to your fluid intake. So I always tell people, as long as you're drinking like at least 2 water bottles. If you're super active and you're going to be outdoors, drink a little extra water, but
drink some tea, something like that, but find ways to get it into your body.
And if you drink a ton of coffee, one thing I tell people is if you're going to have a coffee, have at least a cup of water as well with it, because it is a natural diuretic. So, I mean,
same thing with alcohol. If you're going to have a glass of wine, drink coffee after.
Water after.
If you drink coffee after, you're going to
be really dehydrated.
Stimulant, you're just going to be all over the place. Water.
Yes. Water.
I'm not a big drinker, so if I drink wine, I need coffee after if I'm gonna stay awake. But no, you're so right. Water. If you're gonna drink a diuretic, drink water with it. I think that even goes for fruit juice, probably like cherry juice or anything like that.
Well, and something I always tell people with juices too is if people have difficulty drinking enough water, which I know a lot of people do, is add a little flavor. So like sometimes I personally love cranberry juice. I love how tart it is. I know a lot of people don't, but sometimes I'll get the 100% cranberry juice and I throw a splash in my water.
Yeah.
And then I drink that throughout the day because sometimes plain water, it's like, I don't feel like it, you know, and that's
I'm always trying to put lime, lemon, berries, something in water. I soak it overnight. There's so many different combinations that you can do. Actually, Fully Raw Christina, she's a Fully Raw vegan who I've met and know and absolutely adore and love. She has again, she has a specific diet that I wouldn't necessarily endorse. I followed it for a period of time and it did have some healing benefits just because I was incorporating so many fruits and vegetables. Reason why I bring her and her YouTube channel up is just because she has like 20 million different combinations of like mint blueberry water, lemon lime water, watermelon mint water, just all these different flavors you can make and recipes that you can put in your trendy little water bottle and throughout the day drink it more. And that really helped me through time because now I'm always shoving like mint leaves in my water, herbs in my water, like cilantro and orange slices. There's so many fun things you can do to make it delicious.
Exactly. I always tell people to try to flavor their water, and sometimes people don't have the time to cut up. I mean, they don't make the time. We all have the time to cut up a lemon or cut up a lime. So that's why sometimes I'll say just throw a splash of juice in there. Sometimes I'll say make some iced tea, especially in the summertime. So white tea, sometimes I'll do some white tea or green tea because it tends to be a little lower in caffeine. And not only lower in caffeine, its diuretic effect isn't as, like, the higher the caffeine of the tea, the higher the diuretic effect. So if we're trying to maintain hydration, we want lower. So so I always tell people make some iced tea. Like steep some bags, throw it in the fridge, and you have some flavor. So there's so many awesome ways to get some hydration.
Perfect. Okay, so we did 4 and now we're on our 5th superfood that we wanted to discuss. Apple. Does an apple a day actually keep the doctor away? We have Kyanne, registered dietitian, to tell us that that is actually, in fact, the case.
Thanks for that intro. I mean, apples are great. They are
great.
They're awesome. In college, I seriously had an apple every single day that it's hard for me to eat apples now because I overdid it because they're the perfect thing to throw in your backpack when you're on your way to class. It's like, oh, apple, throw it in the bag.
You eat those in class. I was like, that girl is healthy. You always had your apple slices or crunching on it. And
I literally always had an apple, a banana, and then like hummus and like pretzels. That was like my go-to snack in college because it was so easy just to throw in your backpack. But apples are super awesome because they are really high in fiber. Like I said earlier, a lot of them have the same properties. It is high in vitamin C. Right now, we really want some vitamin C during this time of compromised immunity with the coronavirus. So certain apple's a great source of that. There's lots of different fruits and vegetables that are high in vitamin C. I know everyone's been grabbing the vitamin C supplements, but you can eat some strawberries, you can eat an apple, you can eat an orange, lemon, lime, anything citrus, spinach, anything like that is high in vitamin C. So apples are a great source of that as well.
It reduces stress hormones, cardiovascular prevention, helps with skin, decreases blood pressure, helps with hair growth, cancer prevention, endurance performance, oxidative stress, safe for diabetes. What do you think about that?
So the thing, one thing I always teach people with diabetes, because when someone's initially diagnosed, is they're always told, avoid all sugar, no fruit, like you can't have any of this, and avoid all carbs. And it's like, that is not the case. The thing with diabetes is you want consistent carbohydrates. Fruit, yes, it is a carbohydrate. It does have sugar, even though it's natural sugar. It can raise your blood sugar with diabetes. So one thing that I always say for apples with it is the reason it doesn't spike your sugar as high, and you want like a small medium apple. Obviously, if they're eating like 5 apples, that's going to shoot your blood sugar up. But a small medium apple, because of the fiber slows blood glucose absorption. So if you're drinking apple juice versus an apple juice isn't going to have that fiber where the apple is, and that's going to slow that blood glucose absorption. So that's why it's okay with diabetes. I also tell people when they're going to have an apple with diabetes to also include a healthy fat. So sometimes a handful of nuts, some peanut butter, anything of that sort, because healthy fats also reduce blood glucose absorption. So if you pair those two items, it makes it like a nice treat for someone that has diabetes. So that's why it is considered good for diabetes, is because it has those things. It's just providing people with diabetes with the proper education on that, because often they're afraid to eat fruit, and nobody should be afraid to eat fruit because fruit is awesome.
I have a person that I met actually on social media briefly. He's called Mindfully Diabetic Robbie. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he actually is a fully raw vegan that eats primarily fruit, being a diabetic. And that is
type 1 or type 2 if you don't.
Let me look him up. Again, not someone that I would recommend people necessarily, not a lifestyle I am confident in. I don't know why I can't find him, but I know, I can't find him at the moment. Again, not something I would like recommend someone to necessarily follow, because it's each to their own, whatever works. But I do think his existence is proof that fruit doesn't need to be the enemy for people that have diabetes. It's just education, proper education around what fruits and vegetables and things in fats that you're eating in your diet. Maybe do less processed food, etc. Cook.
Yeah, well, and a lot of diabetes today is type 2, which is often linked to lifestyle, being overweight, lack of exercise, that type of stuff. So a lot of it is not the apple they're eating. It's something else that is contributing in their diet. So it's shifting onto incorporating fresh fruits versus going and getting a milkshake. And obviously that's not everyone, and I don't want to generalize that when it comes to diabetes, but typically with type 2 diabetes, when you shift to a more plant-based diet, and that doesn't mean fully vegan, but a more plant-based diet, they have been shown to be able to reverse diabetes.
Which is exactly what I think he did. And what I believe a few other of my friends have done as well. So it's interesting because there's all of these trending diets like keto, paleo, vegan, I've tried every single one of them. And really at the end of the day, we can all agree, all of us on every end of the spectrum, that processed food is probably not the way to go, and whole, nutritious, nutrient-dense food, whichever part of the spectrum you're on, is the way to go. And so doing proper research behind specific foods and the benefits that they may have on your body would be a good thing. Apples, for me, like I love to blend up some dates with some cinnamon and vanilla and then dip the apple in there. You have like a caramel dip. So good. I like to do almond butter with my apples, and they're just I'm someone that's always on the go, and to just throw that apple in your bag is the easiest thing to do, with maybe a square of dark chocolate or like some almonds, and it's like that is all you need at times.
Exactly. I eat chocolate probably every day.
Me too.
I honestly and it's so funny because I get asked sometimes, like, I definitely like to take the stigma away of like being a dietitian and that you never eat those things, because like I get asked sometimes, like they'll say there's like a work party and they're like, oh, you probably don't eat this, huh, because you're the dietitian. And it's like, I can enjoy a cookie once in a while. Like, and I eat chocolate literally every single day. Yes, it's dark chocolate, because that's also my personal preference. I prefer it. But it's like you can have these foods and eat a well-balanced, awesome diet. And that's what I feel like I can't stress enough is like you could literally eat, you can have chocolate every single night after your dinner or after your lunch, whatever time after breakfast even. Have a few little squares of dark chocolate and it's awesome. And it's not going to impede any progress that people think they make or anything like that. And it has a lot of properties that are also beneficial.
Anti-inflammatory as well. Yeah. And from the research I've done, because I'm a big fan of dark chocolate, so I try to find like every evidence that supports dark chocolate.
Of course, why I can eat it.
In general. And I do know that cacao, cocoa, dark chocolate, everything has said, it's if you're gonna have a dessert, that's the one you should go for sure. However, the benefits aren't as stressed as people think. Like they're doing like cacao healing ceremonies that are apparently really anti-inflammatory and good for your body. That a lot of people's beliefs come from ancient practices in Brazil and the Amazon and Ayurvedic medicine. And that's all wonderful because you can't argue someone's personal experience. Like people have truly had healing experiences from these healing foods, which is incredible. But everything I've read basically says the problem with dark chocolate is people have a difficulty portioning that out. For me, like if I buy a chocolate bar, it's probably gone within that day. Like I do not have self-control or portion control when it comes to the dark chocolate. And so if I can get little individual packets, I mean, back when I was binging, it wasn't really an option for me to have dark chocolate in the house. I had to build up my integrity and my trust with any sort of chocolate again. So I would say people who have struggle with emotional eating and stuff, it's one of those things where I literally had to teach myself to have a relationship with chocolate again. Like I would cut up a bar, I would put it in a container, and like I would know that my piece that night was what I was going to have, and I wouldn't return to that container. So I could trust myself that like I could have chocolate in the house again without me binging on it, because chocolate is one of my binge foods. So like that is what's hard now, is like I'll still go in and grab a handful of those power berries from Trader Joe's and just like get lost in those things. But
so good.
in general, if you're gonna just eat anything, I feel like dark chocolate is the way to go. And there are some proven benefits behind that. So that was our bonus food, superfood.
Chocolate,
chocolate.
I mean, to go off of what you're saying with the cacao, there isn't a ton of research, but it is chocolate and cacao does have a lot of magnesium, and we actually are pretty low in magnesium overall, Americans. I don't endorse supplementing it, like I said, unless you are really, because most of the time people don't know if they're low in it. People automatically like hear that and then they'll go get a supplement, and it's like, you want to talk to your doctor. If you think that you're possibly low in magnesium, try incorporating some more foods that have magnesium, or ask your doctor for a magnesium test before grabbing a supplement. But chocolate and cacao tends to be higher in magnesium, which also helps with a lot of things like depression, elimination. Also, another great thing for that, it lowers your blood pressure. It does help with type 2 diabetes. It is a super important nutrient that we get enough of, and it has a lot of anti-inflammatory properties as well. So that's the bonus food, is definitely, if you want some chocolate, have some chocolate. And when you're eating it, think about the magnesium benefits you're getting.
Exactly. Well, thank you. We discussed red tart cherry juice, apples, garlic, honey, and cruciferous vegetables.
And chocolate.
So everyone, go raid the grocery stores. Just kidding. Don't do that. But maybe on your next Amazon order, next time you're at the grocery store, you walk by the aisle, maybe try some red tart cherry juice. Let that be your summer cocktail. Throw some vodka. Just kidding. I'm kidding. Throw some alcohol in that. I keep thinking like this is the best non-alcoholic beverage I've had in a while. Eat some dark chocolate.
You can even put a splash of like sparkling water in the red tart cherry juice, and you're sitting there thinking you're having like this cocktail, and
it tastes like that. It looks like a mocktail. Yeah. All of those foods, like if you could have some salad with cruciferous veggies for lunch, an apple with some dark chocolate for a snack, that cherry juice while you're hanging out with your friends at night and they're all getting wasted and you are just filling your body with good stuff.
Yes.
Things politically correct right now, and I apologize, but that would all be so great for your health. You can incorporate these things, feel the benefits. I feel the benefits. As you can see, I don't have acne on my skin right now. Neither does Kyanne. We're good. Sort of people who love nutrition and just want to share good info. So thank you for that. And I want to be mindful of your time. I know we're going to eventually come back to these healing foods, hopefully on a different video, and I can steal you again some other time later. If anyone wants the list of food that we're sort of reading off of and going off of, please message me, blairward25@gmail.com. I'll email you the link. The list will continue to grow. And I wanted to leave off with, do you have any words of wisdom or advice for anyone during COVID about lifestyle, healthy eating, and foods we should be incorporating besides the foods we discussed, or things we should be doing to keep our bodies healthy and happy during this time period?
Absolutely. We kind of touched on that last time. And one of the things that I've been like telling people for coronavirus is get creative with your food. Like, this is the perfect time to try a recipe that might fail or might not be as good. Like, this is the perfect time to be creative with our food, because a lot of us are not working as much. If we are, we're working at home. So this is a perfect time to be more creative and try new things. It's also the perfect time to be getting your vitamin C, your vitamin D. Vitamin D is super hard to get from foods. It is in some foods like mushrooms and fish and milk and stuff, but just going on a walk 30 minutes a day. Yeah, go get some sun for 30 minutes a day and there's your vitamin D. So that's something I've been telling people. It's also good for your mental health going on the walk.
Yeah.
You get some good exercise, because exercise also helps boost your immune system and keeps your body, and you're working your lungs. So obviously we want our lungs to be healthy during this time. Yeah. So that's what I've mostly been telling people, and staying hydrated. It is starting to get hot, and like, if you're not hydrated, your body's like starving for that fluid. And in a time where we want to make sure our immune system is super healthy, we want to be making sure that we're hydrated as well, because if we're not hydrated, our body's not able to utilize the things the way it needs to. So, and sleep. Like you said, we talked about it with the tart cherry juice, but sleep hygiene is so important still. Yeah. I've been struggling with it. I normally, as soon as I hit the pillow, I'm normally out. I have not been able to do that lately.
I've been struggling so hard.
I've been staying awake, and granted, I'm watching some movies because I have the time to, but I have been staying awake for like 2 hours after I get into bed, which is not my normal, but it is super important to maintain a good sleep cycle during this time.
Yeah.
Maintain getting your like at least 7 hours. It is very important because it directly affects your immune system as well. So
people don't even know how important sleep is. Until I went and started studying medicine, I had no clue how important sleep was. And the fact that I had been missing out on it all these years, I started freaking out, because people die earlier who don't get as much sleep. That's the crazy thing. I like, people's diseases, their wounds heal slower with lack of sleep. Sleep is huge, and everyone in the medical and nutrition community knows this. And I feel like no one else understands that it could be, before exercise, before nutrition, one of the most important things for our bodies. And we just have no idea. So proper nutrition, getting out in the sun, getting our bodies moving, and getting good sleep. If we can just boom, 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 tick those things off, I think all of us would have a happier, healthier, and better life. And thank you for that. Now, before we end off, please tell everyone where they can find you if they have any questions or want to reach out.
I'm like, what is my Instagram name? My Instagram name is Kyanne Elizabeth. So Kyanne and then Elizabeth.
Yep, and you can follow her if you follow me on Instagram. Just go to my followers, and I will also tag her in my story today, and hopefully put her up on a live video. And yep, feel free to message her. Correct? I'm volunteering.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah, if anyone has nutrition questions, I love answering people's questions. I love to help. It is something that a lot of us have questions about, and I mean, it's kind of my due diligence as a dietitian to spread that knowledge and help people out. So I enjoy it.
Perfect. And the last question I have for you to put you on the spot, but something that I want to ask everyone that gets on here is just if you have one piece of knowledge to leave with us, one lesson you've learned, it doesn't have to be nutrition related, it can be, but anything that's really important for everyone to know and hear that you haven't already stated that's on the top of your head that you want to leave us with, what would that be?
Okay. I think to be completely like authentic here is, even though I am a dietitian, I've struggled with my own like nutrition and stuff. Like it isn't all of a sudden I'm a dietitian, I'm a superwoman with food. Like I do eat very healthy and I do keep things in my diet regularly, but when I was in college, I definitely struggled with figuring out which foods was right for me. I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease my freshman year, and that I really struggled with that with my weight. I have autoimmune thyroid, so I was dropping weight really easily, and then I like fluctuated up. And so I've also struggled with some of those things as well.
We all do, as women especially too.
Yeah. So it's, I guess, to be completely authentic, because I don't want anyone to think that I haven't also dealt with these things. So I have also dealt with how my weight fluctuates, healing my own body, because that's something I had to do when I was first diagnosed. All I was told was, here's a medication. This is what you have. I wasn't told how important nutrition plays into it and how healing my own gut and how all of that plays such a huge role in how it translates into my future. Because so it has been a journey for me as well. That's why I am so passionate about nutrition, is because I feel like I am a living testament of how important these foods are and truly how much better they make you feel. I had such chronic fatigue and I was so miserable when I was first diagnosed. I couldn't stay awake if my life depended on it.
Same.
And
subclinical hypothyroid, by the way, so I feel you on a different level. It's chronic illness is so hard, especially invisible illnesses are so hard.
Yeah, and
well, we should get on another video and talk about food and chronic illness as well.
We can definitely do that, because it is so important. And I'm not super into taking a medication to heal things. I'm definitely food is medicine, and that has been one of the biggest healing points for me, not only with my own disease and like having the autoimmune thyroid issues, but also like something like you do is like health with psychology. I did a lot of work on my own heart and my own mind as well, like part of nutrition. So nutrition's important, but it's not the only thing. And so I guess to leave with that story is like, I understand where a lot of people are coming from when it comes to their relationship with food, because I had to learn that as well, becoming a dietitian. And it was something that is so pivotal in my life today, to where I used to suffer from severe anxiety. I barely have anxiety anymore. Like there's so many things, and it is a whole approach, and holistic. I wholly support that. When I do nutrition, I will recommend someone talk to a psychologist sometimes as well.
Yeah.
Make sure someone talks to their doctor. I will recommend someone to the social work or physical therapy. It's such a huge realm, and all of it goes into our own personal healing. And I love that I get to share my part with nutrition, but I love to emphasize that it really is a whole approach, and so many people are super important and
in the process. It takes a village. Yeah, and the person that's been my nutrition consultant and has helped me for so many years, Michelle Sparrow, she's an angel. She was the first person that brought it to my attention that what you eat is actually a relationship with your food, and let food be thy medicine, like Hippocrates said, but fall in love with your experience and your relationship with food. And then exactly, my anxiety and my depression, I believe through time, was healed with her help and her guidance by nurturing my relationship with food. It doesn't need to be something that controls me or that I can control. It can just be this amazing, liberating, freeing, fun, enjoyable relationship. And I love that that's the message that you spread and that you're so passionate about. Like, you just glow when you talk about it, and it makes me want to like fist pump in the air and be like, yes, because it's just cool to speak to people who know what they're talking about, who are passionate about it, who love their jobs, and who really have the best intention for sharing the proper knowledge. And so thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared. I am so happy we finally got this video recorded. I hope that everyone enjoys this. I have Kyanne's Instagram pulled up here, so I want to show you her handle really quickly. That is it for anyone that wants to search her and find her. Please reach out to her. She's such a gem. And thank you. I'm going to let you get back to your work because I know you're so busy now. So I'm happy to have you on. And I can't wait to have you on again soon.
Yes, thank you for having me again. I love chatting nutrition with you.
Yeah, I know. Me too. You're amazing. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.